expectations for San Francisco?
Well, first of all, I got great respect for Bill Barnwell. I think fourth is high for their skill positions, but they are healthy and it's a good core skill position, guys. So I think that they are going to win the NFC West, 12-ish wins. So I'm looking at them as the 3 seed in the NFC.
Wow.
Like they've got really good weapons offensively. I think Purdy is good, very good. The defense, I think, with Robert Saleh is going to be improved.
Right.
I don't think Christian McCaffrey will be 90% of what he was.
2 years
and maybe
ago.
even much worse than that. But with him and Garrindo, they always have a good running game. And I think McCaffrey's value is a lot of times in the passing game. And so I think he'll still bring value there. So, yeah, easiest schedule in the league. Like, I firmly expect them to have a bounce-back year.
Okay.
Yeah, when you look at what happened to them offensively last year, so with Debo, Ayuk, and CMC, 2 years ago they scored 40 touchdowns combined, the three of them, and last year they scored 4. So it's a pretty significant drop-off.
Still Brock Purdy's fault.
Yeah, it's probably Brock's fault.
Do you want to argue about
I
Brock
just
Purdy,
saying-
or are you
I was
going to go
talking-
to
I was
commercial if we
talking-
bring up Brock Purdy?
I don't know where McCaffrey's going to be. That's the reason he ended up in San Francisco, right? Chronically injured in Carolina. They thought that it wasn't going to change, and he goes, San Fran has the run that he had. But him at 90% of what he could be is still really, really good. I'm with you. I like Juwan Jennings a lot. You've got Kittle. I would expect them to be significantly better than last year. Everything that could go wrong last year seemed to have gone wrong last year.
But they weren't. The thing is, they weren't close last year. What you guys are talking about is them doubling their wins. Like, it's not like this is a team that had all these injuries, had all this bad luck, and barely missed out on the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's been their pattern under Shanahan. When in Garoppolo, you know what I mean? They'd have a 13-win season. Garoppolo's hurt. They win 6. He comes back. You know what I mean?
No, they oddly have either made the conference championship game or further, or missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
You know, since Shanahan's been there. So let's, and just because I can't not acknowledge it, when those 3 guys had 40 touchdowns, we did give Brock Purdy the credit. He almost won league MVP because of it. So it does kind of go a little both ways. But so let's talk about that though, because they used to get a lot of production from Debo. Last year they didn't. This year I'm very confident they're going to get even less because he's not on the team. So like Debo is a chess piece removed from the board. They used to get a ton of production from Brandon Ayuk. They paid him because of it. When he came back pre-injury, he didn't quite look like himself, and now he's a player who is dealing. He has been paid and suffered a catastrophic injury, a bad injury. A torn ACL is a bad injury. Catastrophic may be too strong. The history of that trajectory is usually not ideal. Okay, Christian McCaffrey is a perpetually injured, awesome player. Like, that's who he is. He is now only older and only more wear and tear on the body after last year, the odd injury stuff. I think Juwan Jennings was unbelievable in that Super Bowl they lost to the Chiefs. He threw the prettiest pass anyone on the team threw all game. And I thought he had like a legitimate claim that, like, was he going to win Super Bowl MVP? And I also think that he is an awesome number 3 receiver. I think if he is your second best receiver, if he's your number 2, you have a below average number 2 receiver. They agree with me because despite having him under contract, they paid Brandon Ayuk and drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round. We all like the Ricky Pearsall story that he came back from being shot in the chest, and the last few weeks of the season when I don't even know if Brock was, I think it was mostly with Mac Jones. Maybe who was their backup?
That would have been sweet.
There was Sam Darnold. No, Darnold wasn't their backup. Darnold was killing it in Minnesota. But it doesn't matter. Whoever it was, because Purdy missed a game or 2, and Pearsall played well. I can't remember who it was. Doesn't matter. Point is, Pearsall is an idea. And so
he's an injury.
Right. And so
if he's healthy, I think.
Right, because aside from being shot in the chest, he had dealt with football injuries.
Yep.
And then there's Kittle, who is awesome, but the second oldest tight end in the league to Travis Kelce, who we saw last year in the last couple of years slow down a bit. I just don't see the Niners the way they were seen in years past, which was the most talented team in the league on offense. And oh yeah, by the way, stars on all three levels of the defense. One of the reasons people love the Broncos this year is because of the players they got from the Niners.
That's true.
And so I don't know why they'd be better than the Rams. I don't.
I agree with you, Nick. I don't think they're as good as people may be perceiving them to be, or as good as they were a few years ago, but they're not as bad as they were last year.
No.
And that's the point. And that's the end of the segment. It's a quick cut to commercial. Yeah, it's fair to say that they're not as dominant and great and as deep and as prolific and as dynamic and in terms of their peak power performance that they had been in 22, 23. The 49ers were a scary team in 22 and 23, right? Like, they were a team where you were like, oh man, the 49ers, like, this team can rock you at any moment, right? Like, this team can be an avalanche. And so to me, it's less about, because, the question kind of came from, expectations for San Fran, and it's based off the rankings of the fourth best playmaking group. I didn't go through these rankings. We've been going through so many rankings. I'm just, I don't even know how this playmaking group even came about. Does the quarterback count for the playmaking group or not? Like, is it just other pieces outside of the quarterback? Like, I'm just not entirely sure. And like I said, I can only go through so many rankings. But I think it's fair to say that the 49ers, despite all those injuries, Brock Purdy and the 49ers, at least offensively, actually played pretty well. It was their defense and special teams where the floor fell out underneath them. And that's why they weren't even close, as Nick was talking about. Like, that was actually more of it than anything else. And now with Robert Saleh, if you improve this defense, well, then I believe that this team will be, significantly better than it was last year. Do I think this team right now is that scary 22-23 team where you're just like, oh my gosh, they're going to go off? No, not right now. And I think that's okay. That's okay. I talked about this. The 49ers are on a new clock now. They're on this new 1 to 2 to 3 year window of time. It's not about saying this year we have to immediately return back to being this dominant team. It's like, no, that's not necessarily how it works. Not at all. And just because you paid Brock Purdy this summer doesn't mean that you now need that immediate success and immediate Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP. Like, it's not necessarily how it's unfolding. And again, that's okay. But to think that there can't be a huge rebound of what they had last season, I think that's completely on the table. Just by virtue of them being healthier, in theory, and upgrading defensively from a coaching perspective. And some of the pieces that they lost last year, or that they lost this year, like, those guys were injured. Like, everybody was injured for this team. And the problem is that even when you had a Christian McCaffrey, and even when you had a Debo, they clearly were not who we know them to be, which quite frankly makes it even harder. We've seen this so many times with players, and this happens a lot in basketball too. And this was highlighted very clearly, not last season, but the season before in the playoffs when the Clippers were trying to play with Kawhi Leonard, and it was like, Kawhi Leonard is clearly not 100%, and it's actually more harmful to have him on the court right now. And in a lot of ways, that's what we saw with Debo, especially Debo and Christian McCaffrey, where it's just like, we're treating this game plan and this idea and this mentality that, like, we got Debo, we got Christian McCaffrey, and it's like, you don't actually. And by thinking you do, you're actually causing more harm for your team right now. Like, and that's why I said, like, I'm excited to see what Shanahan does with this idea of knowing I can't build an offense with Christian McCaffrey being this massive anchor for him. And he has to know that because of just the sheer risk of injury, not to mention just, right, what type of player will he be right now? And how Shanahan will navigate it. Still be able to utilize and maximize a player like Christian McCaffrey, But I think it's safe to say that he can't be that anchor like he was in years past. But that is where you then put your faith in someone like Shanahan in understanding how to navigate that, how to grow and evolve this team. Because we haven't had to really see that over these last couple of years. They've been able to really just be who they were, which is a great dominant team. And so now there's kind of like a reinvention. And I'm not going to just be so quick to be like, well, why do we expect anything positive out of them? And it's like, because they still have a core of great guys and a great coaching staff. And despite what you may want to accept, a great quarterback. Is he elite? Is he top 3? No, he's not. Okay, great. Again, we figured that out. Congrats. Is he bottom 10? No, he is not. Despite what we want to try to pretend. So, yeah, I'm interested. I think also when you combine with the schedule, they'll get a lot of wins. Yeah, I mean, the reality is, I feel like when we were a little bit further away from the season, when we were kind of having these conversations, a lot of the conversations were also on the back of free agency, the draft and stuff, new coaching hires or whatnot, just specific, like changes that could happen for a team. And I feel now that we're getting a little bit closer and closer to the season, and we're still far away, but we're definitely getting closer. My natural way of looking at things is really starting to click in so much more. And it's really just like, I got to see these guys play 5, 6, 7 games. Like I got to see them play games, and that's actually how I will then figure out what my expectations are for them. Because my expectations for the 49ers is not, like I said at the top of this clip, is like, it's not that I'm like, they better be amazing, they better be great, otherwise there's serious problems here. I'm like, no, this team has had to evolve and make some changes now, and I'm not going to hold their feet to the fire and say, you better do it right now. I'm a lot more forgiving, and I believe that the 49ers have earned that right. On the flip side, there's other teams that have not earned that right. And it is like, what are you doing? What decisions are you making? And that would be a team like the Dallas Cowboys, for instance, where it's just like, you did not earn the right for some patience. And it's like, if I'm looking at it through the lens of Dak, I'm like, you know what? I will give you the room to not be so great, because this team does feel like it's kind of a mess. But in terms of looking at the Dallas Cowboys as a whole, if I was looking at Jerry Jones as a GM, I would be like, you're going to be fired, man. Like, if you don't figure this out right now, like, what are you doing? You fired the coach. You hired another one. You're trying to do some interesting things in free agency, I suppose. Like, what are you doing? It's just like, I don't have the patience for it. I'm not like, well, they're retooling now. It's like, no. What choices have you been making for these last few years? But that's not what it is with the 49ers. That's not what it is. So, and that is where Shanahan, I did a deep dive, and I made a whole bunch of comments in the comment section about this, because someone was trying to blast Shanahan and stuff like that. I mean, you actually really look at it, right? Like some of his down years and whatnot. It's like, dude, this team continued to be decimated by injuries. Like, that's what always does this team in. Whether it's the quarterback or other players, it's like, what do you want them to do? I mean, I forget who the quarterback was for the 49ers when Jimmy Garoppolo went down right now. But it was just like, I don't know what you're expecting at that point. So you can't just go by the history without actually really looking into how this all unfolded. So I think they'll be competitive. I think it will be a tight race in the division. And even if we just because they brought up the Rams, we won't talk about the other teams right now, but just because they brought up the Rams, to me, that team will so much depend on how much juice left does Stafford have. And I think it is a fair question. I think Stafford very much still has the ability to be elite and ball out, and he clearly very much has the ability to look like, oh man, this guy looks like he's 65 years old trying his best to play football. And so it's just, to me, it's kind of like, what version of Stafford are you going to get? And I think if there's games where you can actually make him uncomfortable and be physical with him, that will catch up with him big time. And depending on how the season for them unfolds, specifically for the Rams, if it is a tough physical beginning of the season, I feel that will, in the long term, absolutely wear down Stafford. Absolutely, at this point of his career. If they're able to get off to a hotter start, where they don't really have to rely on him a lot, he's not taking extra hits, he's able to kind of be pretty chill in fourth quarters, and is able to just hand the ball off and come away with the victory, then that will age significantly better for him. So I feel as though that the Rams are a little bit more fragile in that regard, which will impact, what the said expectations are for the 49ers. So either way, I'm looking forward to it. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the San Francisco 49ers? What do you think the expectations are currently right now? And what do you think they should be? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.